And Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he commanded him. So he's doing good so far, right? But listen to verse 10. It says, and Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together. They're doing great, right? Before the rock, because he said, grab the rod, gather them together, right? But this is where Moses messed up. It says, and he said unto them, hear now ye rebels. That word rebels there means rebellious, one who willfully violates a law, one who disobeys the king's proclamation, a villain who disobeys the Lord. So he says, hear now ye rebels, ye rebellious people, must we fetch you water out of this rock? So here we see Moses' frustration, right? It's coming out now, right? We didn't see him eat up Monday. Hey, what's going on, family? You guys already know what day it is. It is the day after Sunday. Welcome to another Eat Up Mondays. Listen, I pray that you guys had a great weekend. Before we jump into this meal, I just ask you really quickly, if you have not shared the video, please do so. If you have not liked the video, like the video. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please click the subscribe button. It won't cost you anything. And after you click that subscribe button, please click the bell. It will notify you every time we upload a video. So listen, I think this meal today is going to be very nourishing to us all. I think it's going to be something that can be encouraging to us all, eye-opening to us all, and maybe even a little convicting to us all, right? So it's something that I feel is very important that we talk about. It's something that we see a lot of and maybe some of us even deal a lot with, right? So we want to make sure that we really dig into this meal, that you guys are really listening, really paying attention, because I think that you're going to be encouraged. So with that being said, guys, you guys are hungry. I am hungry. So without further ado, let's dig in. Listen, this week, I want to touch a little bit on frustration, right? We all know, if you live long enough, even from a child, there's something that's going to frustrate you, right? There's something that's going to get on your nerves or bother you, or, get you in a little hissy fit, as they used to say. But I wanted to talk about this because it's not so much about getting frustrated and things frustrating us, but it's how we handle it. And I think it's important that we talk about this in this day and age, because we see the spirit of frustration that we see now is like a totally different thing to me than what I saw when I was younger or years ago. It just seems like, because of where we are heading in this world, because this world is passing away, because Satan is intensifying, the things that he's doing. We know that the Bible talks about how his time is short. So we see that the way people are handling their frustrations now, it's going way past beyond arguing or even a fight. I mean, we see people, these videos online where people just kind of get into a disagreement in a gas station or in front of a store, and somebody just jumps in their car and just rams, through the other person's car, or ram into the crowd. Like, those are things that we didn't really see in the past. I'm not saying they never happened, but you see it now more than you've ever seen it, right? And it's all types of, all types of forms of life, all types of different colors of people. It's like no discrimination when it comes to this type of frustration. And we see where people are getting frustrated, getting into it, and just over little small stuff. And like I said, these are things that we've seen in the past, but over something real minute, like literally kill somebody or kill the whole entire family. We saw the guy recently that killed like 7 of his family members because of something that, they were going through, or some type of art that they have. So I wanted to talk about this because we want to make sure that we're handling our frustrating moments the correct way. And not only that, but we also want to see, how does God feel about, how we handle this frustration? How does it affect God? What does it say about us? What does it say about God? What does God have to say about it, right? So I think that, if we're going to use anybody when it comes to this topic, I think we should use our brother Moses, right? Because we know that Moses was a great man of God, but we saw, for those of you that know the story, we saw Moses go through a situation where his frustration caused him to miss out on something very significant. So with that being said, I just wanted to lay that little foundation. But with that being said, I want to read to you guys out of Numbers chapter 20. And we're going to read verses 1 through 13. I'm going to go right through them, but I am going to stop and make some points. And I really believe that is going to encourage you. And I believe that is going to be some eye opening things that we see here that our brother Moses dealt with, right? That he could be the example of that maybe we don't have to go the same route that he did. Or if we've been going that route, that we're able to stop that and figure out other ways to handle our frustration. But Numbers chapter 20, verse 1, it says, Then came the children of Israel, even the whole congregation, into the desert of Zin in the first month. And the people abode in Kadesh. And Miriam died there and was buried there. So his sister Miriam passed away. And it says, and there was no water for the congregation. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron. And the people chode with Moses. That word chode there means they quarreled with him, right? They got into it with him. They were angry, frustrated. They're frustrated, right? Because they're lacking something. They don't have any water. And how many know sometimes when we go through situations of lack or something isn't going the way that we thought it would go, or something is dried up in our life or something changed in our life, yes, it could be frustrating, but it's all about how we handle it. But the Bible says that they chode with Moses. They quarreled with him. They're upset and spake, saying, Would God that we had died when our brethren died before the Lord. And why have ye brought up the congregation of the Lord into this wilderness, that we and our cattle should die there? So they're frustrated to the point of that they're talking crazy, because we know that this was not the intention, or this isn't the intention on why the Lord brought them through the wilderness. They needed to go through the wilderness to get to the promised land. And that was a promise that if they did what they needed to do, that they were going to get to the promised land. But because they are frustrated now they're talking out of their minds, they're talking crazy, and they're, semi not only accusing Moses, but also accusing God of, bringing them out, but not being able to bring them in, so to speak, right? But listen what it goes on to say. And it goes on to say, it says, and wherefore have ye made us to come up out of Egypt to bring us into or in unto this evil place? Now remember, they were slaves in Egypt, right? It says, it is no place of seed or of figs or of vines or of pomegranates, neither is there any water to drink. So they're just running off on everything that they don't have, right? They're frustrated. They're going off on about all this stuff that they don't have. And sometimes in life, that's what we do, right? We focus on the things that are not going right instead of focus on the things that are going right. God has done so many different things for them, showed them so many different miracles. You would think that they wouldn't be talking like this, but this is human nature, right? When something is not going the way that we expected it to go, when things dry up, when things change, sometimes this is how we get, right? But I promise you, there's another way that we can handle these things. If you have the Spirit of the Lord, there's another way that you can handle these things, right? And if we do that, if we handle them in a different way than the way that we've always handled them, things will be much better for us. But listen what it goes on to say. It says, and Moses and Aaron went from the presence of the assembly unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and they fell upon their faces, and the glory of the Lord appeared unto them. I love that, because that's what we want leadership to do, right? We want leadership. If there's a problem in the congregation or something going on, people are complaining something not right, we want to be able to go before the Lord before we give any answers, before we make any moves, right? Because, and the reason why I say that is because sometimes we see in leadership where people feel pressured to make a decision right away because they don't want to lose members, or they don't want to lose people, or they don't want to lose the influence that they have on certain individuals. And it's like, no, whatever you're saying, whatever you're talking about, accusations, whatever it is, let us go before the Lord, so that way we can get the right counsel, right? So that we can be led the right way. Because we know in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, what does it say? It says, acknowledge God in all our ways, and he shall direct our paths, right? But it goes on to say, verse 7, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, take the rod. So here they went before the Lord, did the right thing, and now God is giving them instructions. Take the rod and gather thou the assembly together, thou and Aaron thy brother, and speak ye unto the rock before their eyes. So God says, listen, take the rod, bring them all together, and speak to the rock, and it shall give forth his water. So God says, once you do this, it's going to give forth his water, and thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock. So thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts drink. So God has spoken. He says, listen, I know they're bugging, they're talking crazy, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to get the rod, bring them together, speak to the rock, and bring them the water. Verse 9 goes on to say, and Moses took the rod from before the Lord as he commanded him. So he's doing good so far, right? But listen to verse 10. It says, and Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together. They're doing great, right? Before the rock, because he said, grab the rod, gather them together, right? But this is where Moses messed up. It says, and he said unto them, hear now ye rebels. That word rebels there means rebellious, one who willfully violates a law, one who disobeys the king's proclamation, a villain who disobeys the Lord. So he says, hear now ye rebels, ye rebellious people, must we fetch you water out of this rock? So here we see Moses' frustration, right? It's coming out now, right? We didn't see him, say to the Lord how frustrated he was or was talking crazy to the Lord. We don't see any of that, right? But here, now that he's back in front of the people that was complaining and quarreling with him, he allows his frustration, even after he's heard from the Lord on what to do, he allows his frustration to take over. And listen what happens in verse 11. Verse 11 says, and Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote the rock twice. So God told him to speak to the rock. Not only did he not speak to the rock, but he hit the rock not once, but he hit it twice. And the water came out abundantly. I don't want you guys to miss that. Even though he disobeyed God, what God told him to do in order for the water to come out of the rock, it still came out of the rock. Even though he disobeyed God, the thing that God intended to happen, his will for the people, for the children of Israel, his will was still going to be done, even though Moses disobeyed. And we're gonna break that down a little bit because that's very important. It says, and the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their beast also. So we see God speaks. God says, speak to the rock, Moses, and he struck it twice. But even though Moses, disobeyed God out of his frustration, like I said, it still produced water for the people. So we see that no matter what, right? When you allow your frustrations to get you out of control, you allow people to take you there, get you off your square, so to speak, and then you do something real crazy. Now you have to deal with the consequences. But here's the thing, life goes on for them as usual, right? Life goes on for them like nothing never happened, because they still were able to get the water out of the rock. They still were able to get, what it was that they were complaining about. Like God still blessed them to be able to drink. But here it is now, Moses has made a decision to go against what God has said. He strikes the rock, and now God is going to discipline him. But yet, even though he was right in this frustration to be frustrated, because the children of Israel, they were always complaining. They were always getting at Moses. There was a time that Moses had to stop God from killing all of them because they were acting up. So I'm sure there was many a times that Moses was frustrated with them, because I'm pretty sure in the back of his mind, he like, you guys don't understand. I stopped God from killing all of y'all and starting over with me. But yet and still, there's still consequences to our actions. When God says do one thing and we do another, whether you were right or not, there's going to be consequences to those actions. And that's why we have to be able to handle our frustrating moments a certain type of way. Handle them in the spirit of God, right? Allow God to lead us and guide us in those moments. But listen to what verse 12 goes on to say. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, because ye believed me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel. Before we hop on that, to sanctify, right? If you notice, he addresses Moses and Aaron. Now, we see that Moses was the one that struck the rock, but God held both of them accountable. And it doesn't tell us why. Maybe Aaron hyped him up. Maybe Aaron was just as angry as he was. Maybe God felt like Aaron should have stopped him. We don't know. It doesn't tell us, but he addressed both of them. He held both of them accountable. He says, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, because ye believed me not. In other words, because you did not trust me enough, right? I know you was frustrated. I saw what you was going through. I know they was coming at you, but listen, what I have for you, or what it is that I have for you to do, is more important than allowing them to get you frustrated. It's more important than what it is that they're saying to you and saying about you, right? Doing my will is far more important than the situation that you're going through. And listen what God goes on to say. He says, because ye believe me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel. Now listen to this. To sanctify God is to praise and celebrate him as a holy being, to acknowledge and honor his holy majesty, and to reverence his character and laws. So God says, listen, this was your opportunity to represent me as a holy and a merciful God, because yes, they're wrong. They're bugging. But here I am going to show them mercy and still give them water to drink out of this rock, still grant their request. But instead of you, showing reverence to me, showing them how merciful I am, how holy I am, how good I am, you did something the total opposite, right? You put yourself in the way of what it is that I was trying to do. We see the same thing happen in the New Testament with Jesus and Peter, right? When Jesus was like, listen, it's time for them to take me away. It's time for me to get ready to go and be crucified. What does Peter do? He goes and just cuts off Malchus's ear. And Jesus is like, listen, what are you doing? Like, you're getting in the way of God. Like, this is the will of God. This is meant to happen. You're putting your own personal feelings, your own frustration, your own misunderstanding, not understanding what's really going on in the way of what it is that I am trying to do. And that's exactly what Moses did here. And isn't it ironic that Moses called them rebels? But if you remember the definition of rebels, he has now fallen under the same category. By striking this rock, he has now become rebellious. He is now going against the laws and the commands of the Lord, right? So we got to be very careful that we don't allow our situations, we could be doing fine. We could be doing the will of the Lord. We could be moving in a great way. And then just one little moment of frustration can take us out of the will of God, can have us going against God instead of working with God, right? And we have to remember, we can't allow people to bring us down to their level. Yes, they were being rebels. They were rebelling, talking crazy, but yet, you fall into the same category as them when you allow them to take you out of character. I remember there was a wise saying that if somebody see two people arguing in the distance, I hope I'm saying it right. If you see two people arguing in the distance, you can't tell who the fool is, right? Because they're both arguing, right? So even though they were wrong, here we see Moses, he does the same thing they do. He takes on the same attitude. He becomes rebellious and goes against what God told him to do. And now he misses out on giving, God the opportunity, or allowing God to show them how good he is. And you know what? And we're going to keep on reading, because he actually didn't. Matter of fact, let's just read that, because I was getting ready to get ahead of myself. But something before I read this next verse, understand that no matter who you are, how anointed you are, how much you love God, how much God loves you, there are always consequences to our actions. Let's read verse 12 again, though, before I hop into that next verse. It says, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, because ye believe me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel. Therefore, ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. So this is his consequences for his actions. God said, because you did this, and he may look at this and say, listen, it wasn't that big a deal, God. I just got mad for a moment. I'm sorry. I struck the rock. I should have spoke to it. God said, listen, because of this, what you did, you are not going to be able to lead the people into the land flowing with milk and honey. You are not going to be able to bring them into the promised land. Think about that. Like, God does not play games. God does not play respect to persons. God says, listen, when I tell you to do something, I don't care who you are, you need to do it. When I tell you to say something, I don't care who you are, you need to say it. So listen to the consequences of his actions again. He says, therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. Think about how much that had to hurt Moses. And most people will say, oh, God, that's not right. God, give me another chance. But listen, God gives us multiple chances, and understand God is God. He does whatever he wants. And that's why we can't keep playing with God and doing whatever it is that we want to do and thinking that there's not going to be major consequences to our actions. Just because we can do something and go before God and say, oh, God, forgive me, I messed up. Yeah, God is going to forgive you. But listen, we don't know what those consequences are going to be. And this was a heavy consequence. God took this very seriously. But listen to what verse 13 says. And I almost got ahead of myself on this, but listen to what it says. It says, this is the water of Meribah, because the children of Israel strove with the Lord. So they wasn't really only striving with him. They was striving with the Lord. They was going against the Lord. And that's why the Lord, like, listen, why are you taking this personal? And this is about me. I just need you to do what it is you need to do. That's a word for somebody. Stop taking stuff personal, especially when you're doing the work of the Lord or you're in ministry. Don't take personal what people are doing and what they're saying. Don't take that stuff personal. If anything, they're going against God, not against you. All you got to do is do what God called you to do. So it says that they strove with the Lord, and listen to this, and he was sanctified in them. So even though, but let me go back to verse 12 so you can understand what I'm getting ready to say. Remember what God said to Moses. He said, because ye believe, to Moses and Aaron, because ye believe me not, to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel. That was important to God, that he was shown to be holy and merciful and a loving God. Even though he disobeyed and did something different, God's will was still done. He was still sanctified in them. That's powerful. And what we have to understand about this is, people are going to get you frustrated, right? Situations are going to get you frustrated. But are you willing to go off the deep end and do something crazy to the point of where whatever those consequences are, like it's almost like a point of no return, right? It's like an opportunity that you're going to miss for the rest of your life. Like when I see some of these situations where people are ramming through crowds, and I saw this video with this young lady. She got so crazy at a gas station that she ran some people over, ran into the midsection, and flipped the truck over that she was driving. And it's like, listen, is it really worth it, right? Like, is it really that serious? But because of the spirit that is in the land now, right? It's a higher type of demonic spirit, like that, the presence, that the devil has, and that he's kind of, I should say, placing on people, like the spirit that is in the land now, and the way that the devil is moving. Like, you need to be talking to the Lord every day. You need to be praying to the Lord every day, because it's serious business. Like, these are the end times. We see the rebellion. We see people acting crazy. We see the things happening that we never saw happen before. So if you are not careful, even being saved, we can find ourselves in a Moses type situation, right? Getting frustrated to the point of where we do something and just totally miss out on God. And that's what I wanted to encourage you guys on today. Don't let anything frustrate you to the point of where you're going to do something that's going to cause you something that God has for you. Because it not only happens with people, sometimes it happens with life, right? Sometimes it happens in family. Sometimes it happens with our careers. Things happen, things go wrong, and we get frustrated. We can't be hitting stuff and kicking stuff and ready to run into a wall. Some people get frustrated to the point of, unfortunately, taking their own lives. It's like, no, it's not that serious. Tomorrow's another chance to see another day, to live another day, right? We know that the Bible talks about how joy, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning, right? Like, you never know what tomorrow may bring. So you can't allow yourself to get frustrated to the point of where you're willing to risk it all. And that's exactly what Moses did. He risked it all, right? And this shows us that God has no respect of persons, because here it is, Moses, the mighty man of God, does not get the opportunity to lead the people in. We see the same thing happen with Elijah, right? Elijah, he's running from Jezebel, he's hiding, and eventually God says, "Listen, it's time for you to come on home. I got a replacement for you," right? So God he doesn't have any respect to persons. All God wants us to do is say what it is he says to say and do what it is that he says to do. And that's where we see in the body of Christ or in churches, that's where the problem lies is a lot of times God said, just say this. Just do this. I'm not even making it that hard. But a lot of times we want to put ourselves in a situation. We want to make it like we're super offended or we need to implement ourselves in what it is that God is trying to do. Get out the way, God. Get out of the pulpit, get off the stage. Let me handle this. Let me do this, right? Whether it's out of frustration or whether it's showing off and making everything about you, God says, no, all I need y'all to say is say what I said to say and do what it is that I said to do. But listen, I wanted to encourage you guys. Stop allowing every little thing it's okay to get frustrated, right? I don't think that's ever going to go away, but it's how you handle it. Stop letting things cause you to fly off the hook and say things that you can't take back, do things that you can't take back, because guess what? In the long run, it's going to hurt you more than it's going to hurt them, because as we seen with the children of Israel, they still got what it is that they requested and went on about their life. And now Moses missed out on a great opportunity to lead them in because he disobeyed God. But know that I love you guys. Know that I appreciate you guys. I pray that you got something from this, and I pray that you was encouraged by it. I'm encouraged by it because we all get frustrated, but it's all about how we handle it. But until the next time, guys, we share a beautiful spiritual meal together. Know that I love you, and shalom.